Good afternoon, Santa Clarita, and welcome to the Action Drug Rehab Hour here on your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. And it's good to be here. It's kind of like one of these kind of things where I love coming here and I love doing these shows, but lately the shows that I've been doing, well, I was going to say, are pretty sad. But I've had some pretty good success stories on too. But the message, and this is Cara Miller with me. And hi, Cara.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm
Good.
gonna let you tell your story in a minute
Okay.
because it's really a tragic story. But
Yeah.
sadly, it's not alone.
Yeah.
It's kind of like every day on my Facebook, and I get phone calls from people that it's tragic, and it's the time that we're living in. For the last few years, I've been screaming that the opioid epidemic is here. It's going to kill more people than anything that we've ever seen before when it comes to drugs. It dominated the news, and then all of a sudden, the pandemic came,
Yeah.
or what we call the pandemic. I believe we have a bigger pandemic, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But as soon as the stay-at-home order came and COVID hit the media, they stopped talking about everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, completely stopped. But anybody that was drinking drank more. Anybody that used drugs used more drugs. Anybody that had anxiety had more anxiety. Anyone that was depressed got more depressed. And it just got really crazy, but under the rug kind of thing. It wasn't talked about that much. But me, I'm in the business that I'm in, and I'm in the business of. I was telling my staff that of saving lives, especially today, because I used to say, you know what, come in rehab, get clean or not. Now it's get clean or die.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because what's out there today is it's not a game anymore, man. I mean, not that it ever was, but fentanyl came in this picture. And what happened is during the pandemic, everything happened at the same time. We put everybody on a stay-at-home. People, like we were saying, started drinking and using more drugs. All these opioid addicts, you know where they got their drugs? They went to doctors. All of a sudden, the doctors and the DEA and the medical association says, wait a minute. We are creating drug addicts. We got people overdosing from all these opiates. Stop writing them. So the doctors stop writing them. Where are people now? You got to remember that demand is now higher than it's ever been in history, and the supply, bang, gone. Where do y'all think people were getting their opioids? From doctors. That's where they were getting them. Dealers were getting them from doctors. They were sending people and going doctor shopping and selling them, and all of a sudden they couldn't get them anymore.
Yeah.
Which opened the door wide open for fentanyl. So China started sending them here to America, fentanyl, which they still kind of do, but we kind of did a good job of stopping that. But then they sent it to Mexico, and in Mexico they're making millions and millions of batches of pills and everything else. And the sad thing is, I mean, you could buy a press kit right on Amazon and make anything look like any drug you want it to look like. So what happened is the supply it was flooded now. They flooded the market with pills. But guess what? They're not real.
Yeah.
If you listen to the DEA, they'll tell you 100% of every pill bought today on Snapchat, on the internet, and on the streets are cut with fentanyl. I'll give you the benefit of that. How about 99.9%? So that means every time somebody uses drugs today, they're playing Russian roulette with more than one bullet. It's a deadly game, and you can't win this game anymore. The sad thing about it is it's not just pills anymore. It's in every freaking thing. If you try to buy heroin, yeah, you might get heroin cut with what? Fentanyl. If you buy Percocet online, you're buying what? Percocet. No, you're buying fentanyl. They're even putting it in cocaine. If you look at the high-profile overdoses, we had a couple of comedians that died a few months ago from a fentanyl overdose, but they used cocaine. Figure that out.
Yeah.
We had those 3 young girls that overdosed on fentanyl, but they took ecstasy. Fortunately, they didn't die. Then we had the sad one in North Hollywood. So it's in everything right now. In fact, they say it's the number one killer from people 18 to 45. I say that's not exactly true. I'm more like 16 to 45. And if you look at it, over 100,000 people died in the last 12 months from an accidental overdose, most of them from fentanyl, by accident. Now, a huge percent of those people had no idea they even took fentanyl. They were just getting drugs, what they thought, what it wasn't what they thought, in other words. So, but that's just the beginning, 100,000. Let's say that, because how many people? That's been determined that that's what killed them. There's still a whole bunch that they haven't even they're not even sure about yet. Added suicide because of substance abuse or alcoholism. You could double or triple that number. How about domestic violence? How about child abuse? How about robberies, car crashes, and everything else? So what do you think the real pandemic is right now? Imagine if you turned the TV on today and they said every day 10 to 12 people are being shot on the streets. Isn't that the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
These are our kids that are dying out there. These are our neighbors, our friends, our families. And sadly, your story is like so many I've heard. I mean, it's just so freaking sad. And most of the people that are losing their lives are found usually at home in their bed or in a hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
By who? By somebody that loves them very much and has to walk into that. So tell us, Cara, who are you? What's going on with you? And we'll let's lead up to your story. How's that?
Well, my name is Cara Miller.
So I'm not going to call you Cara anymore. I'm going to call you Cara.
I mean, you could call me
And
whatever
we
you
go
want.
and we go way back. That's bad.
Yeah. So I've been living in Santa Clarita for probably about 22 years now. I'm gonna say 22 years. I moved here when I was 14. And
The only thing here was Magic Mountain,
I know it was so nice.
right?
Nothing was here, and now it's just becoming like LA.
Mm.
It's just traffic all over, and people are snooty, and
People are snooty. That's a good one. Okay.
So I've been.
I'm sitting here and I'm looking out the window and I see my daughter, actually, and her friends out there waving inside. That's pretty crazy. Hello, guys. Love you,
Oh my
Courtney.
gosh. Oh, that's so funny.
Okay, but go
I
ahead.
get that. Okay, so I've been a mental health advocate for the past, I'm gonna say, 6 years. I suffered from anxiety since I was 5,
Right.
and yeah, it, like, never went away. So I felt like, I would never meet anybody with the same, like, problem I had.
Right.
And then I met Aaron, who was a friend of mine. We met through a mutual friend, and then we had a lot in common when we met and stuff like that. So we decided, to become a thing, as what we say back then,
Right.
become a thing.
An item, a thing.
An item, a thing.
Right.
And then so I got pregnant with our first child, and we decided to get married because that was the right thing to do, right? When you get
Right.
pregnant, you just get married,
Right.
And
That's the rumor.
we hadn't known each other for very long. We only knew each other for like 3 months
Right.
before we got married within a month.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty fast. And then I didn't.
That's impulsive.
It's a really impulsive, and I didn't know about his addictions until after we got married.
Right.
He was addicted to drugs, and he was a heavy drinker, and I didn't know any of this until after we got married.
How did it all hit you? I mean, how did you figure it all out?
Well, he basically told me about how he was addicted to bath salts.
Wow.
Which was really, like, heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Oh, I haven't, done it in a while." And I'm just like, okay. And then he started drinking, and then I was like, okay.
Yeah, bath salt's pretty insane.
Bath salts is crazy, yeah. And he luckily went to rehab and he got better. So he didn't do bath salts ever
Because
again,
that could make you really psychotic,
which it did.
I'm sure.
It did. Like I felt like he had split personalities sometimes because I'd be with him and then he'd be one person one day and then the next day he'd be like somebody completely different.
Right.
And
How'd you deal with that?
I just kept telling myself I love him, and when you
Mm-hmm.
love someone, you stay with them. But then at the same time, you're like, do I really want to be in this?
Right. That's
Um,
a hard spot, isn't it?
it's a very hard spot because I'm not one to just walk away from someone.
Mm-hmm.
I usually want to work things out, but it got to a point to where I was just miserable. And being married to somebody that has a drug problem is very, very hard.
Yeah.
And then as being a drug addict, he would tell me, he would use our kids as I'm the father of your children. Do you want to leave me like this?
So you had one, then you had another one.
Yeah, both of them weren't planned, actually. My second child that I had was definitely not planned, and I was actually surprised I was pregnant. And then at that point, I was just like, man, I literally have 2 kids with this person. But don't get me wrong, Aaron was an amazing guy when he was not high.
Right.
He was amazing. He had back surgery, and then the doctor gave him Percocets.
And there you go.
And then he started becoming addicted to Percocets, and he would run out of them within like 3 weeks.
Right.
And be like 2 months supply.
And the reality is when you're taking those pills, as you know, is you build a tolerance up.
Yeah, which he did, and the Percocets didn't
So
work anymore.
One every 4 hours
Mhm.
doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything.
And it's 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. And I've had people come into our treatment center that are taking up to 30 pills a day.
Yeah.
And when you have a prescription in those days for 90 pills, they're gone in a few days.
Yeah, which his were. He took like 4 pills within like an hour.
Right.
Which did nothing to him. He wanted more. So he went back to his doctor and he told him, "Oh, the Percocets aren't working. Can you prescribe me something stronger?" And the doctor said, "Okay, yeah, I'll give you this." And I was surprised at this because the doctors knew about his his previous drug habit, and he would just continue to give him the pills.
You got to remember, too, and there are some doctors out there that just aren't that educated or they're out to make a buck, but most doctors are really good people that want to treat people.
Yeah.
And the problem with pain is you can't see it.
Yeah.
So when somebody comes in there and they're in agonizing pain, or they say they are, doctors want to treat that pain. They don't want this poor person to hurt.
Yeah.
So the problem, and then you mix up somebody that's already got an addictive personality with pills that in pain meds and muscle relaxers and anxiety pills and all those stuffs are really great short term. But after any short period of time, we build up a tolerance and we get now emotionally and physically addictive. And then what happens when we try to get off the pills? It kind of tricks our brain into believing we still need them because we're going through detox, so the pain's even worse.
Yeah.
And that's how it continues and continues and continues.
Yeah, absolutely. So he ended up getting prescribed Soma.
Muscle relaxer.
And
Dangerous, though.
There were days I couldn't even wake him up. Like but he loved taking them because it got rid of the pain.
Right.
But he took it too much.
It's also a very dangerous and hard drug to detox. It's even harder and more dangerous than opiates.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I did see that when he was weaned off the Soma. I saw
sick, huh?
it was bad. He got really sick.
Yeah, and it's a dangerous drug to detox off of without medical attention even.
Yeah. He would actually go to the hospital maybe once a week just to get meds for his back because he was in so much pain.
Right.
And the doctors would give him morphine and tramadol, I think it's called, tramadol. And he he would be like, he was actually blacklisted at the hospital.
Yes, they do actually do have a list there in the ER, and and people's names are really on that list. And when they come in to try to get pain meds, needed or not, they're not getting it.
Yeah, and so guess what he did? He had me go
Right.
and tell the hospital I was in pain.
Yep.
And what am I supposed to do? I'm married to this guy who I loved at the time, and I was like, I just want him better.
You're watching him scream in pain.
Yeah. So I ended up getting him the
Right.
pills, which I felt so guilty
I'm
afterwards.
so glad you're sharing that because I hear that so often, but so many people are afraid to even own up to that. So a lot of props for that.
Yeah, it was really hard to deal with, honestly, and he tried to get me to do it a lot, and I kept saying, no, I can't do this anymore. I cannot give you drugs anymore. Like, you need help. So he and I had a lot of issues. We decided to get a divorce, actually, because I just couldn't take it, and there was a lot of things happening in our marriage, and I was just
How old were your children now?
they were, oh gosh, my son must have been 4 and my daughter was 6.
That must have been pretty tough for you and the kids,
Yeah,
actually.
it was really tough.
All of you, yeah.
Yeah, it was really tough. My son was too young to really get it, but my daughter like was really close to her dad. So to see him like not be in the house anymore was really hard for her. But didn't want them around the drugs and around daddy
Right.
high all the time. I mean, it was just
Yeah,
not good.
yeah, but when it comes to that point, your job now as a mom,
Yeah.
or your position as a mom, your responsibility as a mom is to protect your children.
Yeah, which I tried to
And
do.
yes, well, it sounds like you did a good job until it kind of
Yeah.
it got a little bit crazy. But this is to anybody out there. I mean, what I'm telling all parents these days is be the person you want your kid to grow up to be.
Mhm.
Be the hero. Be the one that you want your kids to grow up to be. Do what I say, not what I do. Doesn't work.
Mhm.
So be that person. You don't want your kids to use drugs, don't use drugs. You don't want your kids to cuss, scream, and pull somebody out of a car, don't do it. So be the role model for your child.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So while we were separated, he lived at his parents' house, and he was a whole different person. Then he did more drugs because he didn't feel like he had a reason to live anymore because he didn't have me anymore. You know, his kids were only seeing him, once a week or whatever. And then he would have like this split personalities. He would be verbally abusive towards me and everybody else around him that loved him, and then he'd be like totally fine. Like an hour later, he'd be like
Right.
a totally different person. And I know it's the drugs that he took that made his brain like flip floppy,
When you're taking the kind of pills or drugs that he's taking, you're in this kind of I don't even know how to explain it, black kind of cloud.
Yeah.
Everything is dark and it's not real, and you get angry real easy, and your feelings get hurt real easy, and you
Yeah.
lose control, and you could be a little psychotic for a minute, then not. It's all over the place.
Yeah, and he got himself into trouble because of this. CPS came. There was an incident at his parents' house, and CPS came, and he went to jail.
Right.
And he could not see his kids.
And I won't ask you why.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
No,
say
no,
it.
I'm not even going to ask you.
But
But it must have been terrible for you.
It was one of the hardest things ever, and my kids were afraid of him after this. And he had a restraining order, or his parents had a restraining order against him, just for the safety.
Right. So it got really bad.
It got really, really bad. So he went to jail, and he was in there for a good few months, and then he got out. And then his thing was for him to go to a living facility, sober living facility. So he did. He was perfectly a different person. Like after he got out, he was fine. He
Some
was
people,
happy.
the people that are addicted to alcohol and drugs, at the end of the day, are great people.
They are. They are.
They're emotional. They're loving. They're
Yeah.
sensitive.
Yeah.
But put drugs in there, and it changes the whole thing.
It really does. And after he got out, he got back into the drugs again because his back started hurting and he had to go back to the doctor. And I was like, Aaron, you got to really be careful because look what just happened. Like, you lost everything because of this.
Right.
And I don't think he realized it. He just wanted the pain to go away.
Yeah.
Which, when you're in that state, it's really, really hard to see, like, the
Right.
precautions of your actions.
Right, and you always think you can do it differently and better.
Yeah.
You always say to yourself, oh, I'm recovering. I've been clean and sober 41 years.
Wow.
But when you're in that zone, you always think you can do it different and better,
Yeah.
and not the same, and it'll be different. But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I'm here with Cara Miller. We're going to come back in a moment. We're going on break. Her story is tragic, and it gets even more and more tragic as we go on. So don't miss this story. We'll be right back. This is the Action Drug Rehab Show. Welcome back to the Action Drug Rehab Hour here on, I was going to say in Santa Clarita, but everybody knows we're in Santa Clarita, on your hometown station, KHTS. I'm here with Cara Miller. I got it right.
Now you said Cara.
I'm getting better, aren't I?
Yeah.
And we're listening to her story, and it's really very tragic.
Yeah.
But sadly, it's not nothing that I haven't heard so many times before.
Yeah.
And I'm sad. And what scares me even more than that is I know I'm going to hear it more until we somehow figure a way out of this crisis that we're having right now with fentanyl.
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those kind of things. We're not going to buy our way out of it. We're not going to arrest our way out of it, even though we need to be tough on dealers and crime.
Yeah.
But it's the only way we're going to do it is by doing shows like this and educating people of what's going on out there. And the education shouldn't be fentanyl kills. And it should be all drugs are bad, because right now fentanyl's in all drugs.
Yeah.
So if we're just saying fentanyl kills, everyone knows that. How about it's in all drugs are dangerous, and that's where we need the message we need to give today, period. We're even finding traces of it in THC when we're testing people, so it's really crazy. But Carl, where did we leave off? You were telling us you got
about the rehab, that he had been kicked out of the rehab.
Okay.
And
for what?
I
could guess, but
yeah, he because of his issues with certain people in there, they just decided to kick him out.
That was he on pills already or no?
He was sober, but I think he was withdrawing, and he got really angry one night, and they couldn't deal with it, so they kicked him out, which was typical. I mean, this happened about 4 or 5 times.
Right.
And then he got a hotel, and his poor parents had to pay for these hotel rooms of his, like, weekly.
Here's where it gets even crazier.
Yeah, so he would be living in a hotel because he was not allowed back at his house.
Let me guess, it was probably in Castaic.
It was in Castaic.
You know that almost everybody that I'm dealing with that ends up in hotels in the last year ends up in the hotels in Castaic.
Yeah, because they don't care over there. I mean, they have druggies in all those hotel rooms there. So, of course, he's in these crazy hotels in Castaic, and he meets people that probably have drugs on them, and he gets back into the drugs that he was trying to get off of.
Definition of insanity.
Yep.
Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting it to be different. The only real difference with that is people that are addicted to drugs, in their minds, they know it's not going to be different.
Yeah, exactly. So he would be back at this, and he would introduce me to the people that he met at the hotel. And I said, this is not okay. Like, we're not allowed to see your kids until you get better, basically. So he went back to rehab, did about maybe a couple months. He was great. And then they kicked him out again for some odd reason. And this reason, I still don't know why. But because he told me that they didn't have room for him there. He was in like a holding area. Because mental health facilities are backed up. Right. People are on waiting lists, and it's...
Yep, especially if you have no insurance or Medi-Cal.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to call every day and get on this list. If you don't call, you're off the list. It's really tough.
Exactly. And part of his probation was to go to a sober living facility, and he had to be the one to find one.
Right.
And it took him a long time to find one to take him because they all were backed up.
Right.
So he finally got into this one, and he was there for I'm going to say a good 3 to 4 months. And then he was sober during that time. He was doing great. He would call me every day and say, "Hey, I'm doing great. I haven't done drugs in like this amount of time." And I was so proud of him. I was so happy.
I'll bet you.
And
Father of your kids.
yeah. And I finally, he finally got to see the kids, and the kids were so happy to see him and just spend time with him and stuff like that. But then I guess the sober living facility said he couldn't be there anymore, and I forgot what he said why, but so he ended up leaving again, and he had to find a new one. And then he went back to Roadway Inn, which I hate that hotel.
I'll bet you do.
So I would visit him there maybe every day. We would talk every day, and he was not on any drugs or anything. He would be off of drugs.
Although you're divorced, you still got love for the guy.
Exactly. I always did, and I told him that. I said, even though we're divorced, or going through divorce, I still love you regardless. I'm here for you. And he was a totally different person. He would be really loving. He would say he was so sorry for everything that he ever did. And he was one of the very last days that we hung out was one of the best days that we ever had, and it was with our daughter. And he took her and he bought her all this stuff, and he said, "Oh, here's your Christmas present for this year, because I may be in the sober living by then, so I won't be able to get you a Christmas present." So he got his daughter and his son a Christmas present, and the kids were really happy. They were like, "Oh, Daddy, thank you." So it was really, really tough, and that day, I just saw like it was really, really hard because we had a great moment together, and I just remember hugging him and saying, "I'm so proud of you," and all this stuff. And then he was really excited because I had, as part of his celebration present, I bought him a game that he really wanted called Kingdom Hearts,
Right.
which he really loved. He played that game so much, and he would tell me about what level he was on and stuff. And he said, "Thank you so much for buying this game for me," and all this. So this was the night before. He asked me to hang out, and I told him, I said, "I'm really tired. I would hang out, but I'm really tired. I'm going to go to bed,"
Right.
which I regret. And he said, "Okay, I'll see you in the morning," because we had planned to do this meeting. We had to meet with our social worker or something.
Right.
And he told me he'd go with me, and then he texted me, or I texted him, and he didn't answer. And I said, "That's not like Aaron not to text me." And it was already like 12. I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll go to this meeting by myself." And I had been at this meeting for like 4 hours, and I had nothing from Aaron. And I said, "This is really odd that he had not texted me." So
Right now you're getting worried.
I'm getting worried. And I called his mom and I said, "Did Aaron call you today?" "Oh, I haven't heard from him." And it's like, "Oh, that's really weird. Why isn't Aaron calling anybody?" And I called him and he didn't answer. And I texted him, no answer. So I told my mom, I said, "I need to go to the hotel and I need to see if he's okay." And my mom said, "Let's all go just in case something is wrong."
Yeah.
And that like literally was like really hard, because looking back now, it's like maybe that was like God telling me something bad's gonna happen. So when we went to the hotel, went to his room. I knocked on the door, but the door was open, so I opened it, and there was a guy there I'd never seen before. And I said, "Oh, this must be the wrong hotel." So I closed the door, and I looked, and I said, "No, this is Aaron's room." So I walked back in. The guy came to the door. I had never seen him before. And I said, "Is Aaron here?"
Right.
And he looks at me and he goes, "I don't even know who that is." And I'm like, "But you're in his hotel room." And he goes, and then I see Aaron on the bed face down. And I said, "Oh my gosh, what is happening?"
Right.
And I just knew at that moment. I just knew. I ran out of the hotel. I started screaming. My dad comes up. And he goes, "What's going on?" I said, "Call 911. Something bad's happened." My dad goes into the hotel. The hotel person calls 911. She's freaking out. I'm freaking out. I go back. My dad says he's cold.
How terrible.
He's gone. I said, "No, he's not gone. Go in there and try to wake him up or something. I know he's not gone." I'm literally hysterical at this point. My kids are in the car. They're screaming their head off because they don't know what's happening. And I'm literally crying my eyes out. And then maybe 10 minutes after that, the police come, everybody comes, and then the detective talks to me and she says, "I'm sorry, he's gone. He's probably been gone for about 14 hours.
And this guy's in the room with him.
Yeah, and the guy fled. He freaked out and fled, and nobody knows why he was even there. I have an idea, but they asked me. They said, "Was Aaron addicted to heroin?" And I said, "No, he would never do that. He would never do it." And they said, "Well, there's heroin all in the hotel room." And I said, "There's traces of it." And I said, "Are you serious?"
Well, you gotta remember, right about that time, pills stopped being available.
Yeah.
So we dealt with a lot of people, even professional people. I'm talking nurses and stuff that started using heroin and smoking it and all that, and ended up in serious crisis because it wasn't even really heroin; it was cut with fentanyl.
Yeah. So the detectives, do a scope of the room and everything, and I was interviewed by police, and they, this one detective was like, "Oh, this isn't a surprise. We see this every day." And I'm just like, he was sober though. That was my first thought, was he was sober. He was 4 months sober. What happened? And after all that, I went back to his room the next day, and there was blood all over the bed. It looked like a murder scene had taken place. And I said, "This just does not feel right. Just does not feel right." And I swear that moment was one of the hardest moments of my life, was taking all of his stuff and just crying my eyes out. And I'm just like, this does not seem real to me, that he's gone. And explaining that to my kids was the hardest thing, because all they did was cry that night. They had no idea.
It must have been terrible for all of you.
It was really terrible. My son felt guilty because he had not spent his last days with his dad. And
your daughter wanted to go help, didn't she?
She did, and I told her it would not be a good idea.
She wanted to go in the room?
Yeah. She wanted, and I feel bad now. I should have had them go say goodbye to their dad. I'm saying when we our last moment with him in the mortuary.
Do you know that whenever we lose somebody, we always say things like, "I wish I would have done different, better, or more."
Mm-hmm.
You did what you did, and you did the right thing.
Yeah.
Just don't question what you did.
I know. It's just hard.
In fact, come here, give me a hug. Seriously, I'm sorry that you all had to go through this, man.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to say one thing, then you're on. But I have to say this. I usually cuss when I say this, but I can't cuss here. The heck with alcohol and drugs and everything it does to the person using it and everyone that loves them.
Mm-hmm.
The heck with them.
Yeah.
And you could put better words to that, man. It's disgusting and sad. And go on.
So the detectives took his phone, which I still don't have to this day. I don't know why I don't have it. I've been trying to get a hold of the detective, but I have not heard anything back. But his autopsy report came back, and it showed he had fentanyl in his system. But the person that supposedly gave him this fentanyl, her boyfriend messaged me 2 days after Aaron passed away and said she had gone there with pain meds. And my instant thought was it was laced with fentanyl.
Yeah. They stopped about that time. They stopped with the pain meds. So whatever he took was a bootleg pill.
Yeah. And
That's what's killing everyone, all these poor people right now.
I feel like Aaron knew what he had taken because his best friend received a text from Aaron around 4 a.m. and said, "I screwed up. If call you in the morning." So I feel like Aaron knew what had happened.
Yeah. And he was sober for a minute too, and
Yeah.
so many of the people that end up dying from overdoses have been clean for a while. And what happens is they get high again, and their mind wants more than their body can handle. Just a little bit more, and I'll feel that feeling that they keep chasing. Just a little bit more, their mind says, and the body says, nope.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's what happened. And he was only 29. He was like 3 months shy or 4 months shy of his 30th. And I think that's the hardest thing is because he had so much to look forward to. He was going to write a book. He was going to write music. He was thinking of writing a movie about his life and how he overcame drugs. And he had so much going for him, and I feel like
now the book could be written by you.
exactly. And honestly, he's the reason why I chose to become a clinical psychologist or study it, because I want to help others that deal with mental illness and deal with drugs and alcohol as well. So
how are you holding up? How's your kids?
my kids they're okay. My daughter talks about Aaron almost every day. She's in the anger stage right now. So she was in the emotional stage, but now she's in the anger stage. And she will say to me, "I just want to see Daddy. I just want to talk to Daddy right now." And it's really hard because as a mom, you're just like, what do I do in that sense?
Of course, it's your baby. And there's nothing you can really say to help her feel better except for "I love you and I know."
Yeah, exactly. And there are times when I get angry and I look up in the sky and I say, "Why did you leave me alone with our kids?"
Right.
And I said, "If only you had not taken that pill."
Y'all listening to this, if only you don't take that pill. If only you don't pick up that drug. You might not be a statistic that you will be if you pick it up.
Yeah, exactly. And you know that there's people that love you and care about you, and if just think for one moment when you're looking at that pill, think of all the people that are going to be hurting forever that you're gone. I mean, there's not a day that goes by I don't think about Aaron. I mean, we spent a lot of time together. We were best friends after our divorce. Like there are times where he was in my car and he was like playing country music. He loved country music. So he would play country music in my car and I would tell him to turn it off because I don't like country music.
I don't blame you. I'm the same way. I like cowboy boots. That's it.
Yeah. And then he just turned it up even louder after I told him to no, turn that off.
You guys had a lot of fun together.
Yeah, we
you?
did. We did. And that's what I look on. I look at our good times that we had.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. On that note, we're going to go ahead and take a break. I was going to let people call in. I guess we could if anybody has anything they want to say, but only a couple of minutes, and that would be 661-298-5481. This is your Action Drug Rehab Hour. I'm with Cara Miller, and I appreciate you being here, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Action Drug Rehab Hour here on KHTS, your hometown station. Before we took our break, I was saying that we're going to take phone calls, but we're not. We don't have any time for that. I want to save some time for closure for Cara. So I apologize again. But if you're just joining us, Cara is a friend of mine, and sadly she lost her ex to a drug overdose and actually found him in a hotel in Castaic, and it was a mess.
Yeah.
And she was with her family and her children and everything else, and we're just kind of finishing up the story, and asked you how you're holding up and all that, and pretty hard, isn't it, still?
It's still really hard, and his birthday is actually December 20th, so every December 20th is going to be really hard for me. And he's been gone a year already, which it doesn't feel like it.
Everybody says, pain, time heals all. No.
Yeah.
Time makes it easier to deal with, but doesn't take away pain.
No.
It just makes it easier.
Yeah, which it does. It does. And
of course.
there was one thing I forgot to mention was anytime I had like a panic attack or anxiety, I would call Aaron and he would immediately calm me down. He was really good at that. And now when I have a panic attack, I don't have anybody to call. So it's really, really hard for me to not pick up the phone and just make that call.
Right. You can always call us.
I know.
Over at Action. You have my cell number.
Yes.
Seriously. That is fine. So what do you want to say to the person out there that's using drugs or the family that's watching this happen? What do you want to say?
I just want to say that know that there's people that love you and care about you, and don't let them go through this pain knowing that they're going to lose you one day. And get help, even if you have to fight for it. Unfortunately, our mental health facilities are backed up and there are waiting lists, but find someone to help you, find a friend, anyone. And I honestly want this pandemic to stop. And I would love to see it go away.
Yeah, sadly, that's not going to happen. But there's always help.
Yes.
Period. If you guys are listening and you want help, call me directly. Even I will find you a place. If I can't help you at Action Drug Rehabs, I will find you a place as long as you're willing to go.
Yes.
And I don't care when you can call.
Yeah, absolutely.
But how about the person that is watching this happen to a loved one? We got about a minute and a half.
Just stay strong. I understand your pain. I know what you're going through. Don't give up. Don't let what happened make you lose your life. Yeah. Just stay strong and know that you will see your loved ones again, even though, and maybe not in this life, but maybe in the next one.
Yeah. So guys, share this show with your children.
Yes.
With your friends, with anybody that's using or anybody that has a friend that's using or a loved one that's using. It's so important for everybody to understand the devastation of this disease and that there is always help and hope.
Yeah.
I want
absolutely.
special thanks to Cara for coming on the show.
Thank
you. And maybe we'll bring you back in a few months and check on and see how you're doing.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And I want to give you a hug.
Yeah.
And thanks to our listeners.
Thank you, guys.
Be back next week.